My name is Jennifer Shishido, and I am an admissions counselor at Sofia. I am joined here today with my colleagues from the admissions department, as well as the esteemed faculty of the MACP program, who will introduce themselves in just a moment. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will start our info session with the introduction of the faculty. Faculty will answer student questions. Faculty will give their PowerPoint presentation, and we will have admission questions at the end. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat as well during the presentation. There will be questions embedded in the presentation on slide 4. If you have any further questions, feel free to ask them or in the chat. Now let's begin our introductions from the faculty.
Hi, everybody. Welcome so much to our information meeting this evening. I am Jennifer Crane. I am the program chair for the Masters in Counseling Psychology Department. And I have been program chair since January of 2017. So I'm just starting my 9th year, and it's such an honor because one of my favorite things to do is to help students, teach students, mentor students, and learn from students. So I get to continue that on. And I am a licensed psychotherapist as well, and I currently have an all virtual practice. I see, although this number is changing because I have some new clients, let's just say anywhere from 10 to 12 clients a week, in addition to being program chair. And I also am teaching a BA class this quarter in our BA completion program. So it's super fun to get back to the roots of sort of what our field was built upon and kind of study it more in the meta and the philosophical way. So I'm really enjoying that as well. And some of my favorite classes that I teach in our department have been, and I'm sure the list will grow at some point, but psychopathology and law and ethics. I've done child and adolescent therapy, DBT and CBT skills, and process painting is a super fun experiential class we do at the intensive. The Biz of Psychotherapy is a class that I created to help students understand what it takes to be successful in private practice, which I like to think is something that that's unique to our university. I don't know if a lot of universities are covering this ground. So practicum 1 and 3, systems theory. So I'm all about teaching, learning, and growing still as a professional in this field. And I'd like to hand this over to one of my amazing core faculty members. Adam, do you want to go? I'm looking at you, Adam.
Hi. Thank you, Jen. Yes, so my name is Adam Neal. I've been with the Sofia community since 2015. When I joined the MACP program as a student, I since graduating in 2018, have served as a mental health clinician in the educational setting, as well as in 2 community counseling center settings, as well as a Department of Mental Health funded program. And I have worked within the private practice setting as well. I recently completed my PhD in transpersonal psychology through Sofia, with particular research interests in anomalous cognition and what that entails, and how we can understand different aspects of the information reception experience. In addition to serving as core faculty and teaching courses like systems theory, introduction to sex therapy I taught many years ago, and transpersonal theory and literature. I still teach the pre-practicum course to prepare students for the practicum experience, and I serve as the clinical coordinator for the practicum experience for all students going through the program. I currently live in South Florida, and I'm originally from New York and spent 7 years living in California. So I have had a bi-coastal and north-south experience throughout the US. I'll stop there for now.
Should I call in somebody else?
I'll go
I'm
ahead.
looking at you, Michelle. Okay, good. There you go.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Michelle Daly, and I am core faculty in the MACP program here at Sofia University. I started as adjunct faculty many years ago and have been core faculty since 2017 as well. I've taught a lot of different courses, and some of my favorites are the trauma course and any creativity or somatic transpersonal laboratory. I teach the beginning counseling principles and practice courses and also have taught practicum courses as well. So I really appreciate teaching throughout the whole curriculum and being able to teach first, second, and third year students as we witness the development and the growth. Like you, Jen, I'm continually learning and growing also myself. I think it's a lifelong commitment here, a dedication to continuing to learn and grow through education and also as licensed clinicians. So I'm licensed as a counselor and I'm trained as an art therapist. I also received a doctorate from in transpersonal psychology from Sofia University, and the focus of my research was on heart-based synchronization between therapists and clients. So that's an interesting study and a passion of mine in terms of how can we continue to learn and grow and tune into the heart field or the transpersonal field and make this a practice every day, every moment, as best as we can. And I've also taught theories and other courses that it's one of my favorite things is to weave in the how to be present in our own bodies and our own person and how to really develop that therapeutic presence while also stepping into these roles of therapist and as witness and all the dimensions of this field. So I do have a private practice right now, and I have a background of working with many different populations. I've worked with infants. Infant mental health is one of the things I've done, and also with the death and dying. So the full spectrum of the human lifespan. And I think that each of us finds our way in our special niche and how we show up with our own gifts and our own skills. And then through this program, we can develop those even further. So I'm grateful to be here. I also love hiking and yoga and yeah, just being in relationship and in community. So it's great to be here tonight, and I will pass it to Adrian.
Hello, everyone. It's lovely to be with you this evening. I feel very lucky to be part of this lovely Sofia MACP team, and I've been here for 2 years in a core faculty role, and have served as an adjunct for several years before that, teaching mainly human development, human sexuality, practicum, power, culture, and identity, and also teaching an elective in body liberation concepts for clinical counseling. Those are all totally passions of mine, so it's great to be able to work with material that I feel so interested in and engaged by. I am dual licensed in the state of California, originally from Philadelphia. So, at the risk of saying something highly controversial, go Birds. I don't know if anyone is a Super Bowl person here, but the Eagles did win the Super Bowl. I don't know if you knew, just spreading the word.
I thought about you last night, Adrian.
Oh, that felt good. That was a good evening. So aside from the Eagles, I really love my practice. Like Jen, I see about 10 to 12 clients a week. I graduated from a similar program to Sophia's in 2015. So I've got 10 years out from graduation. I'm beginning to supervise new clinicians in addition to teaching them. And I feel very passionately about supporting folks in their journey towards being the kind of therapist that they want to be, embodying their values in this way to support other human beings as a human being. On a personal note, I love cats and soup and cartoons. That's me.
Great. So I just want to take an opportunity to see if anyone who's in attendance tonight and is thinking about being a therapist, right? I'm imagining that's why you're here. If you'd like to introduce yourself and say where you're from or what it is about this career that intrigues you. And I want to just sort of remind you that I know it can seem intimidating to have all these people from Sofia here, like a panel, but we're actually really nice, friendly people, and we welcome your questions. And I just want to reframe it as you have a very unique opportunity to have our attention, right, for this whole hour and to ask us anything you want to. And we want to tell you all the answers we possibly can. So if anyone would like to introduce yourself, we would love to meet you.
Hi, I'm Trishla. Just in Menlo Park. I grew up in India where I got a big exposure to the East, and I have had a lifelong meditation practice and done 200 or more nights of Vipassana silent retreat practice.
Wow.
And in my life, I just I'm a professional artist, but I also have a company where I'm a conversation designer. So essentially, I facilitate vulnerability in kind of settings outside therapy, because therapy is a special container for vulnerability. It's not really accessible in social gatherings, in informal groups with adolescents, and so on. So I try to bring vulnerability into the social arena. And I feel like I'm already so many people's therapist. It just feels like a natural next step. And I'm really excited about Sofia's particular bent of East meets West.
It's lovely to meet you, Trishla. And I know you said like 3 words, and I just imagine all our hearts like skipped a beat when you said, the level of meditation that you accomplished and are interested in. You said creative expression or arts. And then you used the word vulnerability, right? And how you're bringing that sort of more outside of therapy, because obviously this is not a skill we get taught in life, right? This is something we have to usually learn how hard it is to be vulnerable before we can really wrap our minds around like what vulnerability is and what that even means. So thank you so much. It's so lovely to meet you. Anyone else want to introduce themselves? It's okay if you don't. You'll get another opportunity. And I think, Jen, do you have the presentation? Or do I have the presentation? This is always the question. I have the presentation. I just wanted to make sure. Am I the one who's supposed to share it?
Yes, I believe
Okay.
so.
Hey, hold on. Stand by. Technical fumbling ahead.
I have like a very rudimentary question.
Yay. Let's ask it while I'm looking here.
Yes, so is the curriculum delivered online or is it in the Palo Alto campus?
Does somebody want to take that question? Or do you want me to?
I can jump in. Or
Yay.
Adam, do you want to go ahead? So Trishla, so the program is mostly remote. You have asynchronous classes for 4 quarters. It would make sense to have 4 quarters. But twice a year there's an intensive aspect to the program. So our spring intensive is held virtually, and it's 10 days. That is a mandatory part of the program. And during that time, you're taking coursework through those 10 days. And then there's the sort of partner to that is the fall intensive, which happens in person in Costa Mesa. Again, attendance is a mandatory part of the program. And for those 10 days in Costa Mesa, we have courses delivered on campus. Then the rest of the time is remote. And if there's any additional details that I'm missing,
Oh,
Adam, Michelle, please feel free to jump in and clarify.
thank you.
That was great, Adrian. And maybe just a question. And the other thing is we wanted to do something a little different this time, right? We sent you our presentation that we recorded before so you could watch it ahead of time, right? So I know sometimes in the moment it's hard to catch everything and then think about the questions that you want to ask. So I don't know if anyone had a chance to watch that, but it's okay if you didn't. No one's losing points tonight for that. But we just really wanted to see if we could go deeper into some of the things about the program that not everybody gets to ask at the info session. So that was the whole sort of objective about that. Trishula, there's also a, the asynchronous part of the program, right, is most of our program, right, outside of the intensives. And, we have a lot of things that sort of happen in the context of that. Like there's modules and there's due dates within those modules. There's assignments from professors that could mean you're working in a group, you're doing a discussion, you're watching something and responding to it. So there's also engagement in that way as well. It just looks different than somebody who's had a traditional on-campus learning experience the whole time. So that could be some questions you might think about as we kind of go through tonight, if you can think of anything else in regards to that particular experience, because it is different. It does require somebody who's going to be organized and understands, how to read the syllabus and the due dates and things that come and go. So, yeah. So I put together a list of some of the most common questions that students ask me. And I always put this at the front because we can go right into some of these questions if they're burning for you. And we can slowly also move through the slide material too and figure out sort of where those questions come in from there. So we want to talk about, the flow charts, sort of the length of the program, what happens during the different parts of the program, what practicum is like, what a client experience might be like. We have a lot of creative expressive therapy in this program. That could be a specific question. We have transpersonal skills labs, which have a wide arc of what's taught. In fact, most of our transpersonal skills lab teachers are here in the room with you. So we can kind of share with you specifically about what we do in those classes, right? We talk a lot about equity, inclusivity, and diversity and accommodation in our program. And I know it's really important considering what's happening in our administration that we keep this alive and well and moving forward, because it's part of our ethical obligation as a developing clinician to understand power and oppression and authority and how that shows up in our room as therapists, right? So it's alive and well here at Sophia and evolving. And then some of you may have had interviews with other schools, right? So, and that's okay. Like you're gonna, think about this program. This is a big commitment, right? It's almost like choosing a life partner because you're going to be engaged with folks from your university, maybe long afterwards, with the material, what you learned, what you didn't get. And it's super important to understand what that means for you and your identity as a therapist and how that plays out, for the rest of your career. So all of these things are, questions that you can ask us. So does anybody want to try one on? Another question?
I
Trishula,
I don't want to.
please.
I don't want to dominate. So of course, if anybody else has questions, but I think for me, it would be very nice to hear a little bit more about practicum and that side of things and the actual practical experience we get. and how that works within the Sofia world.
Well, lucky for you, our practicum coordinator is here and present. Adam, do you want to say a little bit more? And then specifically, we know you're in California and you're in Menlo Park, so you might even be able to shout out a few sites too.
And maybe the reason I'm asking this is because I've heard that it's very difficult for students. One of the most difficult things for online programs is actually finding your clinical placement, and it's very difficult, and there's like a demand supply issue or something like this, and I just want to know how Sofia supports us.
Great place to start.
So thank you, Trishla. Yeah, so there's plenty to talk about as far as how the practicum experience goes. So as a 3-year program, students in taking the program full time and going through at the middle of the 2nd year, you have the pre-practicum course, and in that we actually talk about all the steps that one would take in order to secure a practicum site. I share with everybody our practicum site database, which includes all of the sites that Sofia students from California and also other states and a couple of other countries have found. So that's available to everybody. Depending on your location, we actually have had many, many more students in the Bay Area or Northern California than we have, for example, in a state like North Carolina or in Ohio, just states that are coming to mind. So we actually have had a longer history of practicum sites in Northern California or the Bay Area. So depending on many, many factors, including the student's own schedule and how they're fitting this program into their life as far as their family life, if they're holding a full or a part-time job on top of it, that can actually be very influential in terms of the level of difficulty that one would associate with finding a practicum site. Many times the students that talk about the difficulty of finding a practicum site are also students who have a lot of restrictions that they place on the kind of experience they're looking for and the schedule that they're looking to be accommodated. And so some of those things are up to the student to decide whether you're going to be able to adapt to a different schedule, forfeit, or sacrifice something else going on in service of the practicum experience itself. So that's just a little bit to comment a little on the difficulty of finding a practicum site per se. We do provide the database that has dozens and dozens of different sites and different types of sites, anything from community agencies to school-based agencies, different programs that are available to students. And now as time is going on, especially post the COVID pandemic, there are more opportunities coming up that are solely teletherapy options as far as practicum is concerned, or hybrid placements where you'll have some clients that will be teletherapy, let's say, versus clients that are in person. As far as how I am able to support students, I am always available to connect with potential practicum site directors, and I do connect with many sites prior to student involvement who are interested in partnering with Sofia. And students have access to all of the practicum forms that you need, and we're able to send them through for electronic signing from the site itself. So there's more that we'll talk about. If you decided to join the program and we're part of one of the cohorts coming up, during pre-practicum, we cover a lot of the technical elements, not just about some of the logistics that I was just talking about, but also about what constitutes licensure and state licensure and these different considerations around what the requirements are to complete a practicum in the context of a master's level counseling program. So I'll pause there for a moment. I see Adrian has their hand up.
Yeah, if it's okay, I just want to share, Trishel, because I went to my grad program was in San Jose, so and it was 10 years ago, which is bonkers to think about, but so I was kind of doing a similar thing or in a similar area when I was doing my practicum before graduation. And so, this like question that Jen sort of highlighted about choosing Sophia versus another school and kind of getting that consideration. There are some schools that have like a counseling center that their students work in, and the program that I went to had that. They had a counseling center that students could choose to get their hours in, and I did that for a quarter just to kind of try it out, and then I ended up going outside of the school because I kind of wanted different experiences. I kind of wanted to like branch away from my grad program, not because I didn't like my grad program, but just because I wanted to get like a variety of perspectives and experiences. So, thinking about that, if you're looking for a school that has a counseling center versus doesn't, for me, I tried it and ended up wanting to do something else anyway. And there were a lot of opportunities. I ended up working in, I think, 2 different sites during my traineeship. So, I found not one, but multiple programs and opportunities. And I don't know if there's anything like this now, so I can't say specifically, but I know from in my experience, I was in, I forget what county San Jose is.
Santa Clara.
Yeah, Santa Clara County. Thank you. Santa Clara County had a couple of programs that would actually, like, I got a stipend through the county for working at the site that I did. So I was actually able to get a paid traineeship. So what Adam said is true. Some of the things that you want and expect from your traineeship will sort of determine what kind of opportunities, like, or the wealth of opportunities that there are. But there are kind of a range of options and opportunities that might exist for you. So if you want to look specifically at Menlo Park and just like Google like traineeship positions Menlo Park, like that could give you some information. And again, we are kind of looking all the time for potential sites, and I'm keeping my eyes peeled for traineeship opportunities. I think we kind of work collaboratively in that way as a department. But yeah, just to say that that was a little bit of my experience. Hopefully that's kind of helpful when you're thinking about this.
Yes, very helpful. Thank you.
Oh, I have something to add too, because I think it is changing, right? We have kind of like the pre-pandemic experience, and now we have like the post-pandemic experience, which is it's thrown a little bit of a curveball at us in sort of like what sites had funding pre-pandemic and lost funding, are rebuilding. Some are going virtual or offering like hybrid experiences themselves, right? So, and then there are some sites that work with schools. So they're like feeder sites for schools that have, programs. And that usually doesn't happen in California, but it happens more like in other states. So if anyone else on this call is in a different state and wants to ask about practicum in that state, please speak up and let us know, because it would be nice to give you some information about that too. So we also prepare you in pre-practicum for you're doing so you really understand your state's requirements. You sort of have sites you're specifically focused on. We get your resume and cover letter going, and you're so lucky to have Adam for that, because he's amazing at all of those practical skills, right? And then there's a mock interview you do with your classmates to kind of take you through that first experience of what you might get asked, not having any, interview experience on a site as well. So we like to think we send you out there pretty prepared, but you do, in fact, have to make that connection, right? You have to set up that interview and make that connection with that site and ask them those questions. But we are your companion. We do hold your hand all along the way. And I know Adam sends many, many, many emails and reminders about what the expectation is, and you have a clinical handbook to follow. So I really like how the clinical part of our program has evolved. So not since I took over, but also since Adam has taken over that too. He's really brought structure to it. Does anyone else here, are they in California or in a different state, or have any questions about other states? Because we're happy to entertain some of those questions get a little more complicated, but we're pretty good at complicated.
Yes, I'd like to ask a question about that.
Hi, sure.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Wallen. I'm actually in Tucson, Arizona.
Hi.
Hello. I've been exploring programs for years. I actually have another profession that I've been engaged in for over 20 years, and it would really be a career change for me to kind of take this leap. And I'm also looking at it from the standpoint of kind of transitioning into, later in my career to do this kind of work, because although I've, always been in that role where I'm kind of serving in a therapeutic way to clients, but through another vehicle, I think it would be a great way for me to really actualize that. And so I am located here in Arizona, and I've been looking at various programs, and I'm very, very interested in, I would say, the depth and the sustenance of the program in comparison to, being older now, going back to a university program, and trying to kind of integrate it with my current profession and, bridge my way out of that at the same time. And so I guess my question to you would be, first off, is it possible to do both at the same time, to work full time? And then also, how would you support a student in another state through finding, in particular, I would be looking for a location or perhaps other practitioners or students who've been through the program that are from Arizona.
Yeah. So we do, through our alumni connections, we're starting to put together geos of folks who reside and have gone through the program, are in the program, are alums. So the good news is those are forming, and I'm not quite sure exactly what we have for Tucson or Arizona at the moment, but I'm not saying there's not anybody yet. And the other thing about being out of state is, we have less sites on our list because we have the most people in California. Then it just gets, more and more sparse from there as far as population and how many students have been in each state. It's kind of one of those things. It's a lovely thing to be able to have such a wide reach. But when it comes to things like this, you might have less sites to go from. But again, you have the same support, you have the same help to go out there and figure out what it is that you want to do versus what's out there, and how to approach a site, how to interview on a site, and how to even let's go back to you working full time and doing practicum. Absolutely, that is a possibility. I did that, right? And I have these amazing organizational skills, right? My time management skills. I had to do that in order to survive this experience of going to school full time, working full time, and then being in a practicum. So it is possible. And the intensives are 10 days twice a year. So you'll have to account for that in both your practicum experience and your full-time job. But when you go to a site, you can ask them, do you have evening opportunities? Do you have weekend opportunities? I mean, that's what I was doing. I did like 3 nights a week and 1 weekend day. And I also talked to my employer, right? I had a very serious conversation with my employer about what was coming up in my 3rd year. And they supported me getting my education. And we talked about how I could roll back a few hours to make room for practicum. And I was going to school on campus, right? So my program started at like 4 o'clock in the evening and go till 9:30 at night. So it's a little different than the asynchronous. That makes it a lot easier, except for the, the intensives, which you have to be at. But yeah, I mean, our program essentially was built and designed to support working professionals for sure.
Great, thank you. And just going back to those intensives, are those 10 business days, or is that 10, you know, do you go through Saturdays and Sundays as well?
It's 10 consecutive days. So they now start the first day of the quarter. So like spring would be Monday, April 7th, and it would go through Wednesday, August 16th, including the weekend.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Wednesday, April 16th. Ooh, it's been a day. That was my first brain didn't connect.
And can you talk a little bit about who makes up the cohorts and how you put those together?
Sure. I'm just wondering, Michelle, do you want to take a question? This could be a good question for you.
Sure. Yes. So our cohorts are quite diverse. Depends on who's applying, and historically there have been people from all over the world. Right now we have students from various countries, as Adam mentioned earlier, and all different states. So really there's quite a diverse group that comes together, which creates a learning laboratory for the group cohort experience. And I find that it's really useful for learning how to do therapy, right? So a lot of times in the cohort, there's going to be role plays and therapy client sessions, and you get to know, and group activities, you get to know intimately your cohort members as you move forward. Did I answer were there two parts to that question? So who makes up the cohort?
Yeah, is it just when you start the program, or you're with students in several stages of the program?
So you start with your own cohort. However, if you start in the winter or the summer, you will be taking a couple courses, and then the cohorts come together at those intensives that Jen was describing about. So when you meet for the 10-day intensives, that's when you'll meet your cohort mate, and you'll have an orientation at the beginning, and then you'll ideally go through with them throughout all of the courses. Now, sometimes people have individual situations where there might be a delay, or there's sometimes shifts in the group dynamic as far as that goes. But in general, if you start with your cohort in spring, say for example, then you will continue on for the 3 years in the program with the same people.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll just say that the cohort is like I always like to think of it as it's an entity that's an experience alongside of your program, right? It's an energy, it's like a force, it's a consolidated learning experience within like a more meta learning experience you're having, because you're having to deal with the relational aspects of the people in your cohort, and in group dyads and whatever assignments come up. This is where the conversation about, power and identity and privilege and culture come into play in a really important way. And just sort of like who you feel aligned with, right? You might find it's a great support for you. It also might push you up against your sharp edges, and those are things to deal with. We wrestle with defense mechanisms and just sort of like conditioning in general, and trauma comes up, and it's like a definite our hope is that these things do come up for you within the context of your cohort, and you're able to wrestle with them and work through them and figure out kind of like how to manage them ever before you sit with a client, right? So this is something that makes our program very unique, is to still have the cohort component to it, because I know a lot of programs, it's easier to disband them. It's better for business, I think, really, to not have cohorts and just have people come in every quarter and be kind of in a dissonant experience as they're going through, maybe seeing one or two people that you know in future classes. Not this program, right? We take the cohort model very seriously, and it's a very big part of how you survive and thrive in this experience of this program. Anything else? These are great questions. We would have covered them in the overview as we move through it. So again, this is why I wanted to do this, so we could lean in very deeply into some of these things.
Yeah, one thing that I'll add to, just in relation to the idea of securing a practicum site, being outside of California, is I am honored to say that Sophia's program is one of the most flexible that I have experienced, not just having had colleagues that went to different schools, but as clinical coordinator and speaking to a lot of different practicum sites and clinical directors. Many universities have additional requirements that they impose on practicum sites and on students in order to complete a practicum, whereas we have the feeling that it is up to the site to decide how they run their training program, and as long as that aligns with what the student is looking for and what our university values and serves ethically and legally the students who are training there, then we don't impose additional limitations or requirements on students that other universities will to meet certain standards that they have set in a way that might not necessarily fit along with what a student's looking for and the way they want to practice and how they want to serve. And so to that end, when students ask, rightfully so, am I going to be completely alone in this experience if, let's say, I don't live in California? The answer is absolutely not. You actually get a lot of individualized attention, which is very different from one of the major universities with tens of thousands of students, perhaps, and huge class sizes. And so students who've been in other states, we give you the tools in order to know how to look for sites. It also becomes a practice in locating yourself in your local community as a prospective provider. So you're finding ways to integrate yourself into, let's say, the mental health culture of your geographical location. And on top of that, to be able to interview at particular places that appeal to you, because you won't be limited to the kinds of sites that you might be able to work at that provide counseling or therapy services. So I wanted to name that as well.
Thank you.
Right. Anything else burning before we figure out where to go next? Well, just something very basic here, right? Our program is 3 years long. And the first year is very theoretical and very personal, right? You are really being asked questions about how are you responding to the material? What is your reaction? What do you know the difference between a reaction and a response? And what does that feel like? Through Michelle's counseling principles and practice class, you get to work in dyads or triads and sort of try on some of these therapeutic stances for the first time and just really sort of feel them in your body somatically and transpersonally and practically, and sort of figure out what that means. And moving into the second year of the program, there's a lot of clinical courses added on to that, right? You're still learning the theoretical concepts, and you're still having experiences, with your cohort that sometimes are great or sometimes difficult. And you're also learning the clinical things that more intense, like the psychopathology and addictions, and what it is to learn about the theory of trauma and how it shows up and how to work with crisis. And then when you move into your third year, you're taking all of those things with you into the practicum. So, our hope is that you really understand better who you are and what's your trauma and how you get triggered and what that means and how you can manage that and kind of like set this aside, right? This is what I always say. How do you get out of your way? Because we all need to kind of figure that out, to be a fully fledged adult in this life. How do we get out of our way and know how to show up for our clients? And then we can take care of ourselves after by going to therapy or talking it out with one of my cats. I'm also a cat person too. or just doing self-care, right? We also know that this can be a very taxing job. You are taking in story after story and narrative and someone else's trauma. We can be vicariously traumatized in this field. We can feel overwhelmed by other people's experiences. So that's also part of this too, is how are we going to learn those tools and skills of how to stay, for better lack of words, I like that Buddhist term, like how can we be engaged but also unattached to the intensity of somebody's experience, right? And that takes practice. We are all very seasoned therapists in this room, and it takes a lot of practice. It has taken a lot of practice for us to get here, right? So, but we want to teach you how to, how to do that. And that starts from day one, right? It starts from day one. And I have a feeling Michelle has a big part of that too. Adrian. Question from our faculty. Adrian, go.
So yeah, I just wanted to put out there for our attendees this evening. First, again, thank you for showing up and for your curiosity. One of the cool things that I like about this program is that, we're all bringing our own experiences of doing clinical work and our clinical journeys. And I think we're all fairly transparent as people about some of the ups and downs of that journey, some of the challenges, some of the victories along the way. So if you have any curiosities or questions about this path that don't necessarily specifically have to do with like how long are the intensives? Like you can ask like, why are you doing this? Why have you done? Like it's a weird career. Like it's an unusual path to take in many ways. And Trisha, I was laughing when you said, I already feel like I'm everyone's therapist, because I think there's a high percentage of people in this career who kind of felt like, yeah, I was kind of doing this already, so like might as well get the
paid for
degree and the license. Yeah, exactly. Might as well get the paper. So yeah, if anyone is sort of curious about, what has it been like, what might I be in for, yeah, feel free to ask those kinds of questions as well. We're very open to sharing about those things.
Thanks, Adrian. That's a great question. And you might be thinking about what you want to ask us. In the meantime, I thought maybe Michelle could talk a little bit about the Creative Expression Certificate that we have as an add-on. I know Trishla mentioned an artist, so we have lots of art opportunities in this program as well.
Thanks, Jen. I was hoping to share about this, and it's very related to Adrian's comment about why we're doing this. So I came into this field thinking I didn't want to do talk therapy. I wanted to do dance movement therapy, actually. And then I ended up doing art therapy just for logistics reasons, and then added on a somatic certificate. But you have opportunities here through Sofia University, through the Creative Expression Certificate, if you are interested in using creativity. So Trishla, you mentioned, I think that you're a professional artist, and creativity might be a bit of a buzzword for you, for anyone. What does that even mean? It's any sort of creativity that you'd like to use in conjunction with becoming a licensed therapist. And so I also see it as an opportunity for self-care. Now, that might be visual arts, it might be music, it might be theater, it might be movement. You might think you don't have any creativity in your awareness, or in childhood someone told you needed to color in the lines and you didn't want to, or vice versa, you thought you always had to color in the lines, and that's how it goes for you now. So for myself, I know that I was engaged with art in a very rigid way, and then I became an art therapist, and I just expanded my understanding of creativity and how that can be used in healing. And that's in healing myself as a person and as a professional. The wounded healer comes up a bit, and also how we can use it to help others. So that's an integral part to, or an opportunity for you if you are interested in that. It is an add-on, as Jen said. So there's a Creative Expression Certificate. It would be a couple additional courses and then additional creative expression work within a few courses that are part of the core curriculum. In addition to that, and related to that, I also have, with the art therapy piece, the Jungian dreams, that kind of energy goes there too. And there's a dream study certificate with Sofia, as is there an eco psychology certificate. So you can take, if you choose to do the program, you could take this whole certificate, any of these certificates, if you want to add them all on, or you could even use some of the dream studies and eco psychology courses toward your MACP degree. You could use 3 units. You could take 1 course if you choose to. If you're interested in any of that, that is available for you as well. Does anyone have any questions about that?
I just want to put a plug in. Come to grad school, do art.
Yeah, yes.
Right?
It's fun. It's like you can play. I know. Absolutely. So, and it might feel intimidating too. It may not be fun for everyone, but
Right.
does anyone else want to add anything? Any of my colleagues here want to add
I just
anything?
want to say I love doing art too, and I have to figure out how to get to do more art. It's kind of it's a little busy, and I have my easel set up, and it's there. I've been working on a painting for 6 months, but the good news is I've been working on a painting for 6 months. So, and I also feel like, um, some students come to the university and they do have like the rigid sort of rules around fine art, right? Or maybe some of the programs they've been in. And so this is a program where we ask you to kind of like break that down and get into the process of your experience and imagine what it's like for a client to be in the process of their experience and to be able to externalize their emotional experience on a canvas or in a sand tray or with chalks or any other sort of creative expression material, which can be pretty much anything. And then you can work with that in a way. And we do that a lot in this program. It's a somatic, creative, expressive intervention toolkit that you'll get on the other side of this. And when my students come to the process painting class, it's the ones who are most afraid of the class because they're like, I don't know how to draw, Jen. I'm not going to do well in this class. And I'm like, well, you're right where you're supposed to be. Versus the students who do know how to draw, it's harder for them to get out of that part of their brain and get into like this is just about fluidity and being in the moment and being present with what is and conveying that. So that's super fun. And that is something I will always do in my career. Before, during, and until I guess I'm no longer in this body.
Yeah, Jen, I just wanted to throw in there that we didn't talk like a huge amount about the intensives, but there's the virtual intensive, which I think can be really nice for people because it's a different kind of spending time together. There's more space for sort of introspection. You're like in class in like a Zoom meeting for some number of hours per day. Then you can go take a break and like sort of reset yourself. And then there's the in-person intensive where, and the reason that I'm thinking of this is because I'm thinking about the creative aspect where like you walk into classrooms that have giant like post-it boards with like monsters and like unicorns drawn on them, and people have made flags that are now throughout this like business room, it's just like this takeover where you see these like little explosions of creativity from class to class. And yeah, it's just like a little bit of a magical experience to bring people together and allow them to have this creative process with that kind of permission to use this as a way to explore all the different feelings of sadness, joy, anger, like all the things that come out are sort of, a transformative process that you get to then witness. So there is something as sometimes challenging as it can be to create that 10-day space in your life. There's, I think Jen and I were talking about this the other day, that there's sort of an arc of the intensive where it's like, oh my gosh, this is weird and amazing, meeting new people, and like, oh, this is really stimulating. And then by day 7, it's sort of like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? Why am I still here? And then by day 10, it's all gratitude and like depth and richness. So you get to go through this really intense little journey over the 10 days where you get to explore the creativity and get deep into some things with people that you form really rich relationships with.
I just remember all the paper people in the study room. That was like, even though the room was empty, there were still paper people in there. And it was quite an experience. Yeah. So I'm noticing the time, right? And typically in our linear presentation, we would talk about the difference between the MFT and the PCC tracks. And you do have an option at this university of doing one or the other or both, and it depends on your state, it depends on your career goals. It's really a difference of 3 classes for to get a PCC in addition to the MFT unit. So if that is something that you want more information about, we can always talk about that in a admissions interview. If that's where you come to in your point of decision. And then Adrian, do you want to say anything about the equity, inclusivity, and diversity and accommodation efforts in this department specifically? Did you want to say anything more about that? Because I feel like that sets us apart too.
I'll just say very quickly that this is equity, inclusion, diversity, and accessibility is something that I think all of our faculty members are holding in their minds as we continue to evolve our understanding of what that means in these classrooms and in the counseling profession as a whole. So it's infused in the program in that way. And of course, it's always an ongoing learning process for all of us. But there's also the EIDA committee that I co-chair with some folks from other parts of the Sofia community. And that's a really cool opportunity for students to get more deeply involved with the Sofia community at large, to meet other people in other programs who are sort of like-minded and wanting to create equitable, safer spaces for all different kinds of people.
Great. Do you want to say anything about the affinity groups that we have?
Sure. We have quarterly affinity group meetings for folks who identify as neurodivergent. So there's 3 groups running currently. There may be more at some point, but there's an affinity group for BIPOC identified folks, for LGBTQ folks, and for neurodiverse folks. And like I said, those happen on a quarterly basis and are just a way to get together with other people throughout the Sofia community who have shared identities. And yeah, it's been really lovely to kind of give folks that space and to come together in that way.
Yes. All right, I'm going to hand it back over to Jennifer, unless anyone has any more burning questions. Going once, going twice. All right, Jennifer, back to you.
Thank you so much, Jen. Thank you all the faculty for your amazing presentation. And also thank you for attending, all the attendees today. Just to conclude, we will be, for admissions related questions, you can always email admissions@sofia.edu. We are still accepting applications for spring 2025 for a start date of April 7th, 2025. The next MACP virtual intensive, like the faculty has said, is on April 7th through April 16th. And if you have any more questions, you can feel free to email us. And thank you so much for getting to know our faculty and also the staff at Sofia University. Have a good night, and thank you so much for attending.